Hey folks, and welcome back to Replay, where games are art. So, last time we left off with Edgar and Tara's plotline. This time I'm going to go with the one I usually play next, Locke's. You notice we've already got a time skip here. Locke has already done whatever sabotage it was he was sent here to do, and we're just going to play his escape from the town. Let me just get some better equipment on him. Definitely sprint shoes so he can move around a bit faster. I like to give him the Genji glove for this segment of the game. Basically, just to improve the amount of damage he does, because a little later on, we're going to have a boss fight where he's the only one who can do damage. So, anyway, it's kind of nice. Again, like I was talking about, the hints that Duncan is working with the returners. So here we have Duncan's house acting as a base of operations for Locke. He's clearly come to recognize Duncan's wife as a friend. Now, moving around the town, seeing what's the same, what's different. This is what I was talking about earlier, about the puzzle. It can be done now. He wants Cider to give us information, and the kid in the basement will only allow merchants to pass through. I feel like it's a little bit too obvious there. Only people dressed as merchants, as opposed to only merchants. It's a weird thing for the kid to say, and kind of gives away what we're going to be doing in this segment of the game, which is dressing up as people in order to get through stuff. For that, though, let's get some items real fast. I don't think I'm going to need status ailment cures, so let's just get up to multiples of 5 for Phoenix Downs and tonics. That should be enough. And let's talk to the merchant. This is a decent excuse for a fight. Merchants and Locke would not get along for fairly obvious reasons. And I love this, that when you steal from the merchants, and also as we'll see soldiers in this segment of the game, you get their clothes. It'd be kind of neat if you could keep that. Oh, I love they become B-Day suits as well. And then run away, because you can't fight naked. I do kind of wish this mechanic showed up again somewhere else in the game, because it's cute and I like it. So now that we're a merchant, people say slightly different things. Like instead of just telling us to get lost, that soldier says scram. Again, a nice little detail. And the little boy will now let us through. I think I already looted all this, so pretty much can just go on through the secret passage. And now we're in the back part of the town. We could go to the weapons shop. I don't think there's anything new here. And there's the next clue. The green soldiers, who are apparently the lower ranked ones, will fight us, where the brown ones just talk. And here is a green soldier. And once again, it's the same mechanic. Rob him. He turns into a B-Day suit. I can't remember if Locke's comments on the size of the clothing are random, like he randomly says either they're too tight or too loose, or if the merchant is always too tight and the soldier is always too loose. Either way, now that we're a soldier, the way the soldiers interact with us will be different. I do kind of wish the game had allowed us to experience being Locke as he goes through sabotaging the soldiers, because this mechanic would be very fun for that. But, okay. Using it to escape is still, a fun change from how the game has worked up to this point. It also really kind of gives us a sense of what Locke's skill set is, what he does for the returners. That he's less of a fighter and more of someone who acquires things, information, items. It explains why he's a go-between. He's someone who can move around easily. Ah, well, that's interesting. And now you'll note there's another merchant here who attacks us because he thinks we're cider thieves, but the main reason is because we now need to switch clothes again. Oh yeah, that's another slightly annoying thing, that it's possible to fail at the steal attempt. In fact, I just did it twice in a row. They really should be very easy to steal from, because if you're stealing from them, it means you've figured out the puzzle. The game should stop forcing you to do it over and over again. But okay, whatever. The real puzzle is figuring out when and how to switch clothes, who you want to be for different segments. Remember, the old man wanted cider, but he's a citizen of this town who used to work for a merchant. He's going to be more willing to interact with a merchant than he is with a soldier. So it makes sense, once you use the soldier costume to open up the path to the cider, you want to be a merchant again. Right, and the little kid wouldn't even let us through if we weren't a merchant. It's the only way to carry the cider. Now, I can't remember how necessary this is. Yeah, he doesn't know what the password is. Rosebud is a reference to Final Fantasy II. That's 2 in the Japanese numbering. Okay, it was not the correct password. But anyway, like I was saying, it's a reference to Final Fantasy II. Yeah. And so we have to do this part of the puzzle over again. But like I was saying, it's a reference to Final Fantasy II, where the rebels against the evil empire in that game, which had some influence on this one, just from that sentence you can tell that, they used Rosebud as a password in that game. Alright, so we can go back to the item shop, get the merchant outfit again. I believe it did not reset what we'd accomplished so far. The boy, I believe, will ask us for the password, and the soldier that we got to move is already gone, I think. Ah, that was the Guardian Knife. It allows you to block. Yeah, it probably is. It probably does always say that for merchants. So, we know the password isn't Rosebud. It's obviously not going to be failure, because nobody would ever use failure as a password. So it's got to be courage. There we go. And he opens up our path into the rich man's house. Guess it makes you do it every time. Okay. And we're back in this room. Oh, that's why it was so complicated to get into before. We were coming at it from the wrong end. And yeah, this is what you get for betraying your town. Troops take over your house and make you a prisoner in it. I like that these soldiers have no problem with a merchant wandering around in this house. Don't question how I got in here. Nothing like that. Okay, well, that answered that. The rich man did not get his money by betraying the town. He already had it. And there the two kids give us the clue we needed to get to the next secret passage. First of all, there's a draft in this room, which we can use to get downstairs. And then somewhere around here, there's going to be a clock to wind. Oh, and I just remembered. If you can somehow get here with soldier's clothing, which I forget how to do, Celeste... Oh, by the way, Celeste is being held prisoner here. She asks you if you're a little short for a trooper. It's another silly little Star Wars reference. They are beating up on her really hard. And here's our thing that she's going to be joining the party. Get her out of all caps. And that's a bit of foreshadowing for Sabin's plotline. Or, if you played Sabin's first, a callback. Ooh, save point. Now I'll use it after I get Celeste. Because, of course, that's what we're doing here. She's a natural recruit, a traitor to the Empire. So it makes sense to try to get her. Yeah, like I said, the trooper line is more fun, but I can't remember how to do that. And this is the beginning of a long chain of mirrors between Celeste and Terra. The first, obviously, is in their names. They are opposites. There's Locke with his whole protecting women thing again. But anyway, Terra and Celeste's names are opposites, obviously. Terra is Earth, Celeste is Heaven. That particular one was added by the translators, as Terra's name in Japan is Tina. Stealing is wrong. That's a great line for Locke. That moment of panic is also a very cute little gag. But there's a lot of other oppositions between Terra and Celeste as well. A lot of ways in which they're the same, and a lot of ways in which they are opposites. And the first one we've already seen. Terra was a pawn of the Empire. She was someone they used. Celeste, at least on the surface, was one of their leaders. They discarded her pretty quickly once she did what they didn't want. But the point still stands. Terra was a frontline soldier, Celeste was a general. Terra was controlled. Celeste rebelled on her own. And as we go through, we'll see a lot more of these oppositions, ways in which Celeste and Terra mirror each other. Another major one, which we'll see as soon as we start getting into combat, is that where Terra naturally has fire spells, Celeste naturally has ice spells. Ice, of course, ties her to the element of water, where her name, Celeste, Sky, ties her to air. Terra's name ties her to earth, and she carries fire. So we've got fire and earth versus air and water. Water is interesting too, because water ties into the mirror theme. Water is nature's mirror. A still pond is very reflective. Water is also an element of fluidity, of change, but ice is not. Ice is rigid, ice is cold, ice is ordered, it has a crystalline structure, a very organized structure. It's hard and unyielding, whereas fire is chaotic and energetic. So we've got that order and chaos opposition again. Fitting then that Celeste was an imperial leader, because she connects with that element of order. That aspect of the Empire probably appealed to her. There's also, we haven't used it yet, but her runic ability. Terra will eventually get a power that amplifies her magical abilities. Celeste has the opposite power. She sucks away the magic of others. What runic allows her to do is basically spells, instead of going at their intended target, hit Celeste instead, but they do no damage. She absorbs the magic points that the spell cost. So where Terra is this source of magic, constantly exploding with energy, very fitting for fire, Celeste absorbs it, swallows it up, like ice absorbs heat, cold sucks it up. So we've got all of these oppositions going, but there's one question I want to put out there. I'm going to answer it in a later video when we get the rest of the evidence I need for my theory, but a very simple question. Why does Celeste have runic? Why would the Empire want someone who absorbs the magic of everyone around her in their army? Because remember, the Empire's enemies do not have magic, only the Empire does. So why does Celeste, what use is Celeste? All she can do is make their own soldiers less effective while having no effect on enemy soldiers. I'm going to leave that question out there. It's going to be much later in the game, probably 2 or 3 episodes, before I'm able to answer it, because we need a little bit more evidence that we're not going to get until we actually go to the Empire. But rest assured, I do have a theory on this. So you'll note, other than ice, Celeste has the same spells as Terra at this level. As the game goes on, if I remember correctly, Celeste gets a little bit more healing powers, whereas Terra gets, eventually at level 99, Ultima, the most powerful destructive spell. So that's a little bit of a balance there. They both get a mix of what in past Final Fantasy games were considered black magic and white magic, but Celeste is balanced a little bit more to the black magic side, the white magic side, and Terra a little bit more to the black magic side. which is again fitting that Celeste would be the one with a bit more light magic, a little bit more white magic, because she's the one associated with the heavens. That also ties into their difference in status, where Terra was a pawn, someone the lowest of the low, Earth, whereas Celeste was a general, which in a military dictatorship is one of the highest positions possible, Heaven. She also hits fairly hard, which I like. I like that the character who could have been, it's sort of a Final Fantasy tradition to have the black magic girl and the white magic girl. Obviously, FFs 3 and 5 allowed you to make characters whatever you wanted them to be, FF2 as well. FF1 kind of didn't have characters, it had character classes. But in FF4, you had Rydia, black magic and summon spells, and Rosa, white magic. You have a similar balance in Final Fantasy VII, where although you can teach anybody any materia, Aeris is obviously the white magic girl. She's got the staff, the personality, so forth. But not in Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI, you don't have a black mage and a white mage in traditional JRPG sense. Celes is much closer to a paladin. She hits really hard with her sword. She equips the heaviest armor in the game. And Terra is more like a Dark Knight. She can equip the same armors as Celeste. She uses very similar weapons, heavy swords, hits hard, and uses black magic. Now again, eventually we'll be able to teach anybody any spell we want, as magic completely breaks the game. But, like I said, previous episode, in a good way. Okay, I'm trying to find a secret path and it does not appear to exist. I may have to give up on whatever's up that other staircase. Also, there's a lot of commanders in this army. Like a lot. Okay, if it's not here, I think I give up. Right? Is that it? I do like that we're fighting soldiers and dogs. They've clearly realized we've escaped, and now they're chasing us. I also like the dogs tend to run away when there's only one of them. Pack animals. Did I do it? No. No. Fine. Now, I'm being fairly free with Celeste's healing magic, specifically. Because although there's not going to be much opportunity to restore MP between here and the boss, since we are on the run. Oh, and here luck goes again. This is another thing about Celeste. I mentioned water is associated with mirrors. And there's a tendency of characters to see other people in Celeste, as if she's a reflection of them. As if she doesn't have a full identity of her own, and they're projecting others onto her. As Locke is doing here with, I'll just give it away, Rachel, the girl that he lost in his traumatic past. It'll happen again later in the game, where Celeste will be mirroring someone else for another character. She's a substitute a lot of the time. Which again, like I was saying, makes sense with the whole mirror theme she has going. I may as well use this tent. I am 80% sure that there's a shop very early in Sabin's plotline. You'll notice, by the way, if I'd chosen to do Locke and then Terra, we would have been doing the first part of the game in reverse. South Figaro, then Figaro Cave, and then the Narshe Cave. There's been a lot of asset reuse so far, so the good news is that Sabin's, the longest of these plot threads, will be entirely new areas. The enemies have gotten tougher than they were before, so that's interesting. At least I think they have. It might just be that there's fewer of us and we don't have auto crossbow. No, I definitely don't think there were bears here before. Oh yeah, another slightly silly opposition between Celeste and Terra. Celeste is dressed mostly in green with some white. Terra dresses in red. Opposite colors. And we do get, I forgot that, but we get to use the recovery spring here. So that's nice. I'm going to want Celeste in the back row for this fight. This is kind of the epitome of random bosses out of nowhere. I guess the idea is that the Empire sent it to chase after us. So yeah, this is kind of the tutorial on how Celeste's power works, because like Sabin's, it's one that has not appeared previously in the series. You use Runic Blade, and then the next magic spell cast, or I should say any magic spell cast until Celeste's next turn, she will absorb. Any spell cast by anybody. This is important because while he's so far been using mostly physical attacks, Eternal Armor has some really nasty magic attacks. Like Bolt, for example. And there you see it. Instead of anybody taking damage, Celeste absorbs the MP cost of Bolt. Poison, that's a nasty one too. The downside is that we can't use Celeste to heal. So when that becomes necessary, I'll have to have Locke use tonics and potions. It's a cute gimmick, but to be honest, this is very nearly the last time in the game that Runic is at all useful. Oh yeah, that was a good point. Runic even works on Tech Laser, which is a Magic Tech attack. It's one that only Magic Tech armors get. That's going to be important later on, when I explain what I think Celeste is for. Why they employed her. And that is it for Locke's plotline. So, last and largest, Sabin. Same at least went down river. Oh, I forgot to take the Genji gloves off lock. Well, I kind of needed them for that boss fight. There was never really an option. And here's Shadow. So the Empire is now already, just after taking Figaro, preparing to attack Doma. And as we saw in Locke's plotline, they intend to use poison, which is of course a war crime. It's chemical weapons. And Shadow joined our party for the first time. Shadow's an interesting mechanic. That thing about him coming and going like the wind wasn't just rhetoric. There's actually a random chance of him leaving the party like I was saying, there's actually a random chance of him leaving the party after any fight. And once we hit a particular point in the game, he's guaranteed to leave. He'll come back again later, but for at least the first half of the game, he literally comes and goes like the wind. Let's see. Definitely need that. Don't need that. Definitely need those. So, as a ninja, as is traditional in Final Fantasy games, Shadow gets to throw weapons. And the best one is the Shuriken. The Invis Edge and Shadow Edge are gimmicks. They're not particularly useful. Basically, they do all of the whatever edges, you throw them, and they have similar effects to Edge's ninja magic from Final Fantasy IV. But yep. That's a lot of damage for this point in the game. Shadow hits hard with the throw command. And note that he was doing that from the back row. Throw does the same damage back and front row, so Shadow also takes very little damage from being in the back row. Let's see if I got the blitz right. Yay! So yeah, basically in this party we've got two very powerful characters, but we're all attack. We have no healing ability, except for items. Fortunately, there's not very far to go. Oh hey, the bunnies riding lettuces have been replaced with bunnies riding purple cabbage. I do Aura Bolt a lot because it's the same attack as Hadouken. The button presses are the same. So it's fairly well burned into my muscle memory from my misspent youth playing Street Fighter II in arcades, back when arcades existed. Of course, by arcade, I mean the Street Fighter II machine in the laundromat, which all the kids would use while their parents did laundry. Ah, and here's the other mechanic. That was actually the dog jumping in to take a hit for Shadow, and then counterattacking the enemy. Shadow's kind of a weird character that way. So, sorry about that, had a glitch in the recording. like I was saying, Sabin being an enemy of the Empire, I'm assuming, like I was talking about with Duncan fairly clearly being one, we're gonna infiltrate the base and see what we can do to help out Doma. And here we're getting a bit more characterization on Kefka. He's ambitious. Troops are speculating he wants to be a general, but they really don't like the idea. They do not want to be led by him. And that's understandable considering how he was treating the soldiers under his command in Figaro. Kefka is kind of a jerk. On the other hand, whoever this General Leo is, the soldiers respect him quite a lot, possibly even like him. Now, here we're going to get something kind of interesting, because I was talking before, in previous videos, about this idea of characters having a formative trauma as being a way in which media, especially Japanese media, anime and video games, like to define a character around one trauma. With Celeste, we had her show up during her trauma. Here, with Cian, we have a character who has not yet experienced his trauma. We see from his description, he is the classic samurai archetype. A warrior loyal to his king, defines himself around his loyalty and service to his king and his prowess in combat. Now, I can actually choose to fight the soldiers. I'm trying to make up my mind on whether I want to. Now let's go straight for the commander. I mean, let's face it, he's a little bit of a badass. Sadly, his special ability kind of sucks. At this point in the game, it's useful enough, because you charge it to level 1 and it's a reasonably damaging attack. But the problem is charging it to higher levels takes a really long time, during which you can't do anything else. And Cian is already really slow. So... But yeah, this is Cian on top of the world. This is Cian single-handedly defending his homeland as the greatest warrior in it, as someone against whom the enemy cannot stand. Back to our people. I have no idea why it switched my face character to Shadow, but alright. And now we've got a little bit of a stealth mission. The goal here is to not get caught. And I picked the wrong option to open the chest and got attacked. Yeah, I don't know why we're even bothering to fight. Interceptor is way stronger than we are. It takes both of us together using our best attacks to kill a dog. Interceptor can wipe it out in one hit. Okay. Now leave him in the back row. I'm thinking about equipping the black belt, but I'm gonna wait. Why are tonics all the way down there? Protects against poison. Oh, the irony here is painful. But it does make sense that the Empire would have it here, because, as we know, they're about to use a poison attack. There we go. Successfully evaded that one soldier, accomplishing nothing. Ow. And I screwed up the bullets input. Wonderful. And I screwed up again. And Saban's dead. This could be going better. But as long as I have Interceptor on my side, I'm basically unstoppable, because he is the Dog of Destiny. Yeah, let's, No, that's not what I intended to happen. It's interesting. Interceptor apparently cannot hurt things in the air? I may as well just fight these guys. It's a cool enemy design, at least. Evil grasshopper things. Giant evil grasshoppers. It works for me. Yeah, you can't hit things in the air. Makes sense, I guess. Okay, yeah. So, I'm running back to the shop because my selection of healing items is not adequate. And I'm leaving Saban dead because Shadow can solo the enemies between here and there, and frankly, I don't want to waste the Phoenix Down. Okay, we're finally back at the house, and the merchant who looks mysteriously like an Imperial soldier. What's his story? Deserter, maybe? Yeah, I'm gonna need a lot more tonics because I've got a lengthy segment of the game with no cure spells coming up. More Phoenix Down is probably a good idea too. Maybe tents? Nah. And an important thing to keep track of in any game, free healing. Alright. Imperial Camp take. And I walk in the wrong direction because I forgot to save. As I was saying, Imperial Camp take 2. Ah, and here is the mysterious General Leo. Sacrifice too many lives to see him, you mean? But no, this is good. This is another quick way of sketching in some character. Leo is the honorable soldier. He knows his men. He knows where they're from. He doesn't want to tell their parents about their deaths. He doesn't want to lose a lot of people in a raid. He's got the polar opposite attitude to Kefka. Unfortunately, the organization he's working for is the kind of organization that would employ people like Kefka. That's a pretty good summary of Leo's character. He's someone who could have been one of us, but he's working for the bad guys. Kefka, meanwhile, is gleefully contemplating a major war crime. I'm really curious as to who Leo means by they here. Kefka clearly takes it as being Doma, but Leo could just as easily be talking about his own soldiers. And here we go. A third option, that some of the Empire soldiers have been taken prisoner, and so wiping out everyone in the castle will kill them too. It's a good summary of it. Kefka, of course, has no idea who we are. Just that we've decided to confront him, therefore he will kill us. This, of course, isn't a real fight. One hit and Kefka's done. This is Kefka's idea of humor. He dresses like a clown, but he's not actually so good at the funny thing. Or more accurately, things he finds funny are not the things other people find funny. If I remember correctly, there's a reason to try to fight that thing? No, apparently fighting it is not an option. Kefka, we can fight again by talking to him, I believe. First, treasure. Oh, here's... okay, here's that mecha. Oh, that's a multi-target berserk, isn't it? Ouch. If I remember correctly, yep, Telstar is a variant on an enemy that showed up a lot in Final Fantasy IV that I recall, and I think 5 as well, where you damage it for a while, and then when it's close to death, it summons other enemies to extend the fight. Ow! That wasn't so bad. Oh, Green Beret is a good helmet. Yeah. Bonus HP, I believe. No, I'm not going to give relics to Shadow because he can leave at any time. I am, however, seriously considering giving Saban the black belt to give him counterattack. On the other hand, since I don't have the Genji glove, Mithril glove isn't too bad. And True Knight black belt is a great combination and one that works well for Cian personality-wise. Yeah, here we go. Hit Kefka once and he flees. He's kind of a wimp, really. Yeah, sure. Anyway, continue searching base for treasure? No? Alright, well, the only way through is to talk to Kefka again. Oh, gripe? It's a strange thing to say. Good, I seem to be getting suplexed down. I vaguely recall that there's a reason to want the Templars to die first. I was hoping you would attack the Templar. Alright, well, whatever that reason was, I don't remember it. They're dead now. And here's the brilliance of Kefka's theme. In Figaro, it was comical and silly, fitting the character he appeared to be there. Here, though, the exact same music, fit to a different sequence of events, has a very different feel to it, especially the second half. As everyone dies. I'm not entirely sure why Cian and that other guard don't die. Probably just because they were higher up than everyone else. Poison is killing them with fumes, maybe? I don't know. Which, in addition to being a war crime, is also a very dishonorable way to dispatch one's foes. Cian probably finds it offensive on a personal level. Let's see, okay, upgrade his equipment a little bit. And yeah, True Knight Black Belt. True Knight will do nothing while he's by himself, but Black Belt will still work, and once there are other party members, it's a combination that'll work well. See, True Knight causes you to sometimes intercept attacks aimed at other party members and take the hit yourself, while Black Belt counterattacks, so the combination means more counterattacks and less damage for the rest of the party. No, the king is dead. This is actually a real disaster for Xian. Traditionally, the samurai was defined by his loyalty to his lord, his fealty. A samurai whose lord died or rejected him ceased to be a samurai. He became a ronin, an outlaw, simply by virtue of having the training and equipment of a samurai but not being employed as one. That was illegal. It was considered a personal failing to allow one's lord to be killed. And that is what Xian has now become. He is a ronin. This is the first half of his defining trauma. The loss of his role as the king's retainer, which is how he identified himself in battle before. And now his music, which, just like Kefka's theme, changed meaning, being used in a different context. His theme seemed like, the badass warrior before, but now we notice it's very lonely. And yeah, dead guards everywhere. And here we get the other half of his trauma, which is a trope I don't particularly care for. Killing off characters for the sole purpose of giving another character feelings about it does not have a great history, especially when those characters are women. And yeah, Elaine has no role in the story whatsoever except for Xian to be sad that she's dead. But this is the other half of his defining trauma. He lost his other roles. Husband, father, retainer to the king. Everything he is now gone. There is nothing left for him but revenge. He has nothing to live for, no reason to exist. He may as well take as much of the Empire down with him as he can. And being Xian, that's a lot. But now we get Sabin involved. And Sabin comes from a different but similar kind of warrior training. There's a kinship here between Sabin and Xian, that they almost instantly become allies, not just because they both want to kill Imperial soldiers, but because they both come from this warrior culture of strength and honor. Frankly, we've got three major archetypes of the Eastern warrior here. We've got the ninja, the samurai, and the martial artist. We are physical prowess and skill incarnate. And it's different kinds as well. The samurai is straightforward, noble, honorable, upper class kind of combat. Whereas the martial artist traditionally is a more spiritual, often of a lower class, where they've honed their own bodies into a weapon. And the ninja is depicted in an almost supernatural way. It's physical abilities, but its physical abilities taken to an almost magical extreme. So sneaky that they become, in essence, invisible, for example. And we're just going to cut our way through this base, doing as much damage as we can. Xian doesn't much care about that. Like I said, he has no reason to live now. But Sabin's not going to allow him to just give up and die. Sabin is going to do the most ridiculous thing that happens in this game. Well, one of the most ridiculous things. These three paragons of physical combat are now going to attempt to pilot the magical mechas. I'm not even gonna... the way Cian talks. My understanding is in the Japanese, part of his characterization is that he uses a very, very formal, old-fashioned style of speech. They attempted to reflect that using an old-fashioned style of early modern English, with thous and these. The problem is twofold. One, thou is actually less formal than you. If you know any French, thou is equivalent to tu, while you is equivalent to vous. Second, I have a lot of respect for Ted Woolsey. I think I've made that clear. I think Ted Woolsey is a huge factor in why this game works as well as it does. That said, he thinks he knows how early modern English works. He does not know how early modern English works. It is even more pronounced with Frog and Chrono Trigger, mostly because Frog gets more lines than Cian does. But, still. It is interesting that we're able to make the Magitek armor work so easily. Of course, it's a game mechanical convenience, and these were designed to be used by soldiers who have no magic of their own. But between this and the fact that a Magitek armor becomes more powerful when Terra pilots it, the implication, which goes way beyond implication in the opening cinematic for the PlayStation version of this game, is that the Magitek armor is slightly alive. It is easy to control because it's closer to riding an animal than piloting a craft. Once you can make your intentions clear to it, it can act on its own. And that makes sense for a magical mecha. You know? That it would work according to intent, rather than pressing buttons and pulling levers. This is interesting. The only way to get to Narshe, way up in the north, is south. But apparently that river is a huge barrier. Yes, and that whole adventure through Doma carried us as far as one square on the world map. Anyway, but it makes sense once you realize that we are on effectively a different continent. Between the mountains and the river, even though it's one landmass, the area around Doma is at least as separate from the area around Figaro as, say, Europe and Asia. There's enough physical barriers in the way that it culturally is like a different continent. And hence, we have to go down to the ports in the south to get the ship we'll need to get to Figaro, from which we can then go to Narshe. Okay, well, we're up to another very interesting segment here, so I think I'll call it here. We'll continue next time with more of Sabin's plotline, possibly taking it to its end. See you all then.